For years, I carried my family on my back. It wasn't glamorous, but I did what needed to be done. I worked 2 jobs, construction during the day and bartending at night. My hands were always rough, my back ached, and my days blurred together. But I didn't complain. I fixed the leaky roof when the storms came through, repainted the kitchen when my mom said it looked tired, and installed new flooring in the living room with YouTube tutorials and sheer determination. The fridge never went empty. The lights never went out, and when the boiler finally died one brutal winter, I maxed out my credit card to get a new one delivered before the pipes froze. I lived by the mantra that family is everything. I believed that if I just kept showing up, kept working, kept giving, one day it would all pay off. There were moments of joy, too. Sunday dinners when everyone was together, the scent of my mom's roast in the air, my dad laughing at some corny joke, and for a fleeting second, it felt like we were normal. It felt like home. Those nights made the exhaustion worth it. Or so I thought. Then there was my brother, Jason, the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong. Jason had the charm, the easy smile, the natural charisma that made people lean in when he spoke. He breezed into family events with stories of his latest business ventures, his travels, his connections with important people. Everyone's eyes would light up when he entered the room, and I was the one who kept the house from falling apart. Jason never stayed long. He had things to do, deals to close, trips to plan. He never showed up to fix the fence or shovel the snow or change the oil in Dad's truck. That was me, always me, the steady one, the reliable one. And for a long time, I convinced myself that was enough, until the night he came home and told me I had to leave. It was a rare quiet evening, the kind I lived for. The table was set, my mom's favorite casserole dish steaming in the center, candles flickering on the worn tablecloth, soft jazz playing from the old radio. My dad sat in his usual spot, sipping on a beer, and for once, there was peace. I felt that familiar sense of satisfaction, knowing I kept this roof over our heads, knowing I'd done right by my family. Then the front door swung open. Jason walked in like he owned the place, grinning, wearing a sleek suit, a new Rolex glinting on his wrist, and his hands, glossy shopping bags, expensive wine, gadgets, a box that looked like it held a watch. Mom's face lit up like it was Christmas morning, and Dad straightened in his chair like someone important had just walked in. Jason clapped me on the back like I was an old buddy, not the guy who kept this house from crumbling, as we sat down to eat. He dropped it like it was just another business update. So, here's the thing, he said, swirling his wine glass lazily. You'll need to move out by next week. Mom and Dad agree. It's time for a fresh start here. The words hit me like a brick to the chest. I looked at my parents, waiting for a correction, a protest, but all I saw were downcast eyes and silence that roared louder than any scream. I just sat there, frozen. The casserole grew cold. The candles flickered. And the home I built was slipping away, one smug smile at a time. I sat there in stunned silence, my fork halfway to my mouth. The words hung in the air, thick and heavy, like smoke from a fire I hadn't seen coming. My heart raced, pounding in my chest so loud I could barely hear the clink of silverware around me. Jason leaned back in his chair, confident, calm, like he'd just shared good news. Mom fidgeted with her napkin, eyes down. Dad cleared his throat but said nothing. I looked at them, my parents, the people I had spent years sacrificing for, the people I'd worked 2 jobs to keep warm, the ones I'd bailed out when they were drowning in credit card debt, the ones I'd held together when the roof leaked and the water heater broke. I wanted to scream, to remind them of the nights I came home bone-tired, boots caked in mud, hands raw from drywall dust, the times I skipped meals so they could have enough, the hours I spent fixing, mending, building, always building for them. But all I saw were blank stares, eyes that slid past me like I wasn't even there. Jason kept smiling, his Rolex catching the light, his glass of wine resting casually in his hand. My stomach twisted with something hot and sharp, anger, betrayal, heartbreak, all tangled into a knot in my gut. How could they sit there, at this table I had built, in the house I had saved, and let him speak for them? How could they look at me and let this happen? I clenched my fists in my lap, the rage simmering just beneath the surface. For the first time in years, I felt it, the burning clarity that maybe, just maybe, I'd been a fool for thinking family meant loyalty. My hands were trembling, but I forced myself to breathe, to steady the storm inside me. Slowly, I stood up and walked out of the dining room. Jason's voice trailed behind me, smug and condescending, but I blocked it out. I headed to my room, and pulled out the folder I kept in my bottom drawer. The thick stack of papers I had gathered over the years, mortgage statements, property tax receipts, credit card bills I paid to keep the lights on, the repair invoices for the roof, the new furnace, the plumbing, every single thing I had done to keep this place standing. I came back into the dining room and dropped the folder onto the table with a satisfying thud. "Let me make this clear," I said, my voice steady, cold. "This house? It's mine, paid for by me. Every dollar that kept the roof from caving in? That was me. Every bill that kept the heat running? Me. Every repair? Every grocery trip? Every late-night emergency? Me." Jason's smile faltered for the first time, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. He opened the folder, flipping through the papers, and his lips tightened. My parents just sat there, wide-eyed, like they didn't know what to say. "Well," Jason finally muttered, "that's not really the point. The family needs a fresh start." "No," I snapped, my voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You need a fresh start, and you can do it somewhere else." I looked at all of them, my pulse pounding. In my ears, "You have 24 hours, pack your things and get out. If you're not gone by then, I'll call the cops and let them sort it out." The room fell into stunned silence. I could feel the weight of years pressing down on me, but I stood taller than I ever had. For the first time in forever, I wasn't backing down. I spent the next morning at a lawyer's office. I laid out the papers, the bills, the mortgage history, and explained everything. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman with a no-nonsense tone, nodded as she reviewed the documents. "Legally, this house is yours," she said. "They have no claim. If they refuse to leave, you're within your rights to file for eviction and involve the authorities." The weight lifted, but it was replaced by a sharper, colder determination. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. When I walked in, it was like nothing had happened. Jason was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. My parents were in the kitchen, making coffee, chatting about the weather. The absurdity of it hit me. How they could pretend it was all normal, as if I hadn't just been told to pack up and leave my own house. I cleared my throat, loud and firm. They turned to look at me, faces blank, expressions carefully neutral. "You have 48 hours, I said, voice steady, eyes locked on Jason. "After that, I'm calling the police." Jason leaned back, that smirk creeping back onto his face like a bad habit. "Come on, man, don't be dramatic. We're family. You wouldn't actually throw us out, would you?" His words were smooth, practiced, the same charm that had always worked on them, but not on me, not this time. I felt the fear bubbling under my ribs. What if they turned this around? What if they called me ungrateful? What if they made me doubt myself again? But I stood tall, forcing my voice to stay firm. "I'm serious," I said. "You've taken advantage long enough. This is over." The tension hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. My hands trembled, but I held my ground. Jason's eyes narrowed, calculating. My parents looked at the floor, silent. The fear was there, but for the first time, it wasn't enough to make me back down. The next 2 days felt like a slow-motion blur. Boxes piled up by the door, clothes hastily stuffed into bags, dishes clattering into bins. My parents moved quietly, their faces hollow, defeated. My mom barely looked at me. My dad mumbled under his breath but never met my eyes. Jason, on the other hand, was a storm of curses and muttered threats, slamming drawers and throwing dirty looks my way like they were supposed to shame me into backing down. But I didn't budge. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching them dismantle the life I had propped up for so long. It wasn't joy, exactly, watching them leave. It was a bitter cocktail of emotions: hurt, betrayal, a deep ache in my chest, but also relief. Relief that I was finally taking control, finally drawing the line. Once they were gone, I changed the locks, double-checked the deadbolts, and installed cameras around the property. For the first time in years, I felt the air in my lungs loosen, the weight on my shoulders lift. This house was mine, and for the first time in a long time, so was my life. The fallout was swift and brutal. The whispers started almost immediately: phone calls I didn't answer, texts I ignored. Word spread through the family like wildfire. I was heartless, a cold monster who'd thrown his own parents onto the street. Jason, of course, painted himself as the victim. Poor guy, just trying to help the family, betrayed by his selfish brother. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly had plenty to say, calling me ungrateful, cruel, a disgrace. But none of them were there when the roof leaked in the middle of the night, when the bills piled up, when the walls cracked. None of them had picked up a hammer or a wrench or a checkbook when this house was falling apart. That was me, always me, and I see it now, clear as day. They didn't love me for me. They loved what I could do for them. The moment I stopped being useful, I became the enemy. It hurts. But it's freeing too. I should have drawn the line years ago, should have seen that love isn't measured by sacrifice alone. I was never just their son or brother. I was the safety net, and when I cut the cord, they fell. I can't carry them anymore. It's time I carry myself. The silence in the house was different now, peaceful. I spent my weekends repainting the walls, patching cracks, sanding down the old banister. I turned the spare room into an office for my business ideas, filling it with whiteboards, books, and plans. I cooked meals just for me, sat on the porch at sunset, and learned to be okay with my own company. I stopped burning myself out to keep others warm, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. This house, my house, became a symbol of my freedom. I learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by respect. I'm building something new now, something that's mine. And if there's one thing I know for sure, it's this. I stopped burning just to keep others warm, and I'll never do it again.